The conference hall on Prime stretched 300 meters wide, built to hold the representatives of 6 species. Today, every seat was filled. The air carried the mixed scents of methane breathers, oxygen users, and those who needed neither. At the center platform, High Chancellor raised 4 of his arms for silence. "The advance continues," he announced, his translator converting his clicks into standard trade language. 17 colonies lost in the past month. Their swarm devours everything. Commander stared at the holographic display floating above his captain's chair. The Eternal Dawn had been drifting through empty space for 847 years. The massive colony ship held 200,000 humans in sleep, the last survivors of Terra. He touched the screen, watching the automated distress signal pulse on their long-range sensors. "Distance to signal origin," he asked quietly. 4 weeks at current speed," replied Bora, his navigation officer. She looked young, barely 25, but she had been awake for 3 years helping maintain the ship. "Commander, that's Council space. They think we're extinct." Nodded slowly. They all knew the truth. Humanity had not died out. They had chosen to disappear. Deep in the archive section of the Eternal Dawn, sat surrounded by old data cores. She was the ship's historian, keeper of Earth's memories. Her fingers moved across the ancient keyboard, pulling up files that were older than anyone alive. The screen showed images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, cities that touched the sky. "Another request for the war records?" asked her assistant. He carried 2 cups of recycled coffee, the bitter smell filling the small room. "No," said, accepting the cup. "I'm looking at why we left. I think people are starting to forget." She opened a file marked Council War's Final Assessment. The document was 900 years old. It told the story of how humanity had joined the Galactic Council, how they had been welcomed at first. Then it told the darker truth. The Council had discovered that humans were perfect soldiers. They came from Earth, with heavy gravity and aggressive predators. They healed fast, adapted faster, and never stopped fighting. So the Council used them. Every war, every conflict, humans were sent to the front lines. They called it an honor. Humans called it slavery. "We faked our own extinction," whispered, reading the final entries. "The Void Plague was real, but we exaggerated the deaths. When the Council believed we were gone, the colony ship slipped away into dark space." Read over her shoulder, "Do you think we were right to hide?" Did not answer immediately. She pulled up another file, this one showing casualty reports. Human casualties. Millions dead in wars that were not their own. "I think we were tired," she finally said. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, called his senior officers to a meeting. They gathered in the strategy room, a circular chamber with a holographic star map at its center. The distress signal pulsed red in the display. Arrived first. He was the chief strategist, a thin man with sharp eyes who thought 3 moves ahead of everyone else. "We shouldn't answer it," he said before anyone else spoke. "We're 200,000 people. They have billions. What difference can we make?" "We have a moral obligation," countered. She commanded the fighter wings, and her pilots were the best humanity had ever trained. "People are dying." "People are always dying," replied coldly. "That's why we left." The lead engineer projected technical specifications into the air. "Before we decide anything, you should see this. I've been running simulations on our weapons systems. When we left Council space, our technology was already advanced. We've had 800 years to improve it. Our can punch through any known shielding. Our missiles are faster and smarter. Our fighters are." "Outdated," interrupted. 800 years outdated." "No," said firmly. "Evolution moves in different directions. The Council focused on energy weapons and defensive shields. We focused on kinetic force and armor penetration. Our approaches diverged. That doesn't make ours obsolete." Listen to them argue. He was 40 years old, born on this ship during one of the brief awakening periods. He had never seen Earth except in recordings, but he had been raised on the stories. Stories of human courage, human sacrifice, human stubborn refusal to surrender. "Show me the distress signal again," he ordered. The hologram changed. It displayed the message in old council code. "All forces respond. Swarm overwhelming defenses. Sector 14 collapse imminent. Billions at risk. Require immediate assistance." "They're dying," said quietly. "We know what that feels like. We know what it means to call for help and have no one answer." "We're not responsible for saving them," argued. "They used us. They worked us to death. They would do it again." "Maybe," agreed. "But we're not them. We don't abandon people because it's inconvenient or because we're afraid." Smiled, "So we're going." Stood straightening his uniform. "Yes, wake the military personnel, all of them. Power up the escort fleet. I want every warship we have ready to fight within 2 weeks." "That's 30,000 people to wake and integrate," Bora said from the doorway. "The medical teams are about to be very busy," finished. "I need you to pull every file we have on them. If they're as dangerous as the message suggests, we need to know what we're fighting." "And if the council doesn't want our help?" asked. "If they see us as ghosts coming back to haunt them?" Walked to the window, staring out at the endless stars. "Then we help anyway, not for them, for the people dying, for the memory of everyone we lost, for the proof that humanity is more than just warriors." He turned back to his officers. "And maybe, just maybe, to remind the galaxy what humans are really capable of when we choose to fight." The meeting ended. Officers dispersed to their duties. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship as pods started their wake-up sequences. In the archive, compiled everything known about the threat. In engineering, prepared weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. And on the bridge, gave the order that would change everything. "Set course for Council space, maximum speed. Humanity is going to war again." The eternal dawn turned, its massive engines flaring to life after centuries of slow drift. Behind it, 400 escort vessels powered up, destroyers, carriers, frigates, all bearing the old Earth insignia. The legend was about to become real again. The wake process took 3 days per person. Throughout the eternal dawn, pods hissed open one by one, releasing men and women who had been asleep for decades. Medical teams moved through the halls, checking vital signs and helping the disoriented soldiers remember who they were. In the command briefing room, faced his newly awakened officers. They sat in rows, wearing old uniforms that still carried the scars of battles fought centuries ago. These were people who had seen the worst of the Council wars, who had lost friends and family to conflicts that meant nothing to Earth. "I know what you're thinking," began. "We ran away from the Council, we faked our deaths to escape them, and now I'm asking you to go back." A woman in the third row stood up. Her name badge read Captain 3rd Marine Division. She had scars on her face and cold eyes. "Why should we? They used us like tools, broke us and threw us away. Let them face their own wars." "Because we're better than they are," said simply. "They used us because we're effective. We're leaving because we have honor. There's a difference." "Honor doesn't bring back the dead," another voice called out. Stepped forward carrying a data pad. "May I speak, Commander?" Nodded. She activated the holographic display showing images of the swarm. The creatures looked like insects enlarged 1,000 times, chitinous armor, multiple limbs, and mandibles that could tear through metal. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything. 17 colonies already gone. That's not 17 military bases. That's 17 worlds. Billions of civilians dead. The room fell silent. "This isn't like the Council Wars," continued. "This isn't politics or territory. This is extinction. And if the Council falls, they won't stop. They'll keep spreading. Eventually, they'll find us too." Stood up from his seat beside. "She's right. I've analyzed the expansion pattern. They move like a virus. Unchecked, they'll consume the entire galaxy within 200 years. including wherever we try to hide. Sat down slowly. So we're not really helping the council, we're protecting ourselves. We're doing both, said. But more than that, we're proving something. The council remembers us as weapons, as tools they could point at their enemies. We're going to show them that we're more than that. We're people who help because it's right, not because we're ordered to. The briefing continued for hours. Officers asked questions about ship readiness, weapons systems, and tactical plans. Presented the engineering updates, showing how human technology had evolved during their isolation. Our use magnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds, he explained, displaying schematics. While the Council moved toward energy weapons, we perfected kinetic force. Their shields are designed to disperse energy. They won't be as effective against solid mass moving at .2 light speed. A young officer named raised his hand. What about our fighters? Took over the presentation. She was a fighter pilot herself, and she spoke with passion. Our interceptors are smaller and faster than Council craft. We use nuclear-tipped missiles instead of plasma torpedoes. More destructive, simpler design, harder to intercept. The bioships have thick organic armor. Explosives work better than beams. How many fighters do we have operational? Someone asked. 5,000, replied. With pilots for 4,000, we'll need to train emergency backup crews. The meeting ended near midnight ship time. Officers dispersed to prepare their units, remained in the briefing room, staring at the star map. They were 2 weeks from Council space, 2 weeks from a war they had spent centuries avoiding. Found him there an hour later. She carried 2 cups of coffee and sat down without asking permission. Can't sleep, she asked. Too much to think about, admitted. What if is right? What if we're too few to make a difference? Numbers aren't everything, said. She pulled up an old file on her data pad. Do you know what the Council used to call us? What? Devils. They had dozens of names for us. The unyielding, the relentless, the ones who never stopped fighting. It wasn't just our weapons or our tactics, it was our psychology. Humans don't know when to quit. She showed him battle reports from the old wars. Human forces outnumbered 10 to 1, winning through sheer stubborn refusal to surrender. Human soldiers fighting for days without sleep. Human medics running into fire to save wounded aliens. Human engineers repairing ships while under attack. We're from Earth, said quietly. We evolved in a gravity well that would crush most species. We survived predators that could kill us in seconds. Our own diseases nearly wiped us out a dozen times. We're tough in ways the galaxy forgot. Sipped his coffee. You really think we can win? I think they are about to remember why humanity was legendary. In the training rooms, soldiers prepared for combat. Drilled her Marines in boarding tactics, teaching them how to fight in tight spaces against enemies designed for close combat. And his squadron practiced fighter maneuvers, relearning skills that muscle memory had retained even through sleep. In the medical bay, Sumi organized her teams. She was young for a chief medical officer, only 32, but she had trained under doctors who had served in the Council wars. She knew how to perform surgery under fire, how to triage when resources were limited, how to keep people alive when everything said they should die. We're going to see casualties, she told her staff. Prepare for trauma that we've never treated before. They use bioweapons, acid, toxins, parasitic implants. We need to be ready for anything. Her assistant, a nurse named, looked worried. What if we can't save them? Then we try anyway, Sumi said firmly. That's what humans do. We fight death itself and sometimes we win. In engineering, worked around the clock preparing the weapon systems. They had not been fired in 800 years. The missile tubes needed. The armor plating required inspection. Every system had to be perfect. Will we be ready in time? His second-in-command asked. We have to be, replied, not looking up from his work. When we arrive, there won't be time for second chances. Our weapons either work or people die. On the bridge, received a message from Bora. The Eternal Dawn had crossed into Council space. Their identification signals were old but still valid, ancient codes that marked them as human vessels. "We're being scanned," Bora reported. "Multiple Council ships detecting our presence. They're probably very confused right now." "Let them wonder," said. "We'll announce ourselves when we arrive. For now, increase speed. The distress signals are getting worse. They are pushing deeper into Council territory." He opened a ship-wide channel. "All personnel, this is Commander. We are now in Council space. In approximately 10 days, we will engage the swarm in combat. I want every ship ready, every weapon loaded, every soldier prepared. The galaxy thinks we're dead. Let's show them what ghosts can do." Throughout the fleet, humans made ready for war. They checked equipment, wrote letters to loved ones still in sleep, and told old stories about Earth. They remembered the blue planet they had never seen but carried in their hearts. And as the eternal dawn accelerated toward the battle zone, every person aboard knew the truth. They were not returning as victims. They were not coming back as tools for the Council to use. They were coming back as humanity unleashed. The Battle of Broken Gate was already lost when the human fleet arrived. 3 Council fleets surrounded a massive space station, trying desperately to protect the civilian evacuation ships fleeing behind them. The swarm covered the space around them like a living cloud, thousands of bioships, each one the size of a frigate, moving with coordinated precision. On the bridge of the Council flagship Eternal Vigil, Admiral watched his fleet die. He was a reptilian species known for tactical brilliance, but there was no tactic for this. The simply had too many ships. "Sir, new contacts on long-range sensors," his sensor officer reported. "Unknown configuration. They're broadcasting old identification codes." "From which species?" demanded. The officer's voice went quiet. "Terran, sir." Felt his blood run cold. "Impossible. The Terrans are extinct, dead for 900 years. "Sir, I'm reading 401 vessels. Configuration matches historical data for Terran military ships. They're real." Aboard the Eternal Dawn, studied the battlefield. The Council forces surrounded on 3 sides. The evacuation ships were vulnerable, protected only by a thin line of destroyers that were being overwhelmed. "Launch all fighters," he ordered. "Target the forces attacking the evacuation fleet. Minyu, take your destroyers and punch through their left flank. I want a corridor open for those civilian ships." "Understood," Minyu replied. He commanded the destroyer Indomitable, one of the fastest ships in the human fleet. "All destroyers follow my lead. Attack pattern Omega, maximum speed." The human fleet exploded into action. 5,000 fighters launched from carrier bays, streaking toward the battle at speeds that made Council pilots seem cautious. Minyu's destroyers accelerated past safe limits, their human crews enduring G-forces that would kill most species. On the Eternal Vigil, watched in disbelief as the human ships carved through formations. "Their weapons, what are they using?" "Kinetic projectiles, sir. Solid mass accelerated to extreme velocities, and, by the stars, those are nuclear warheads. They're using atomic weapons in space combat." The human fired, each shot sending a tungsten rod through multiple ships. The bioarmor that deflected energy weapons shattered under kinetic impact. Nuclear missiles detonated among clusters, vaporizing dozens at a time. Minyu pushed his destroyer into the thick of the swarm. "All weapons, continuous fire. Don't let them surround us." The Indomitable became a moving fortress, its firing every 2 seconds, its missile tubes launching warheads as fast as they could load. Bioships tried to swarm the destroyer, but they were used to enemies who relied on shields. The Indomitable had armor, thick, heavy plates that absorbed blows and kept fighting. "Hull breach on Deck 7, his damage control officer reported. "Boarding parties detected." Seal it off, Minyu ordered. Send the Marines. In the corridors of the Indomitable led her Marines against the warriors. The creatures were larger than humans, with razor-sharp claws and acid-dripping mandibles. They were designed for close combat, but so were human Marines. Shotguns and explosives barked. They're armored, so aim for the joints. Grenades in clusters, move in pairs. The humans fought with brutal efficiency. Where other species would fall back from warriors, humans held their ground. They used explosives at point-blank range, accepted wounds to deliver killing blows, and fought with the understanding that sometimes the only way through was forward. "They're not retreating," one of the warriors transmitted to its hive mind. "These prey creatures are attacking us." In space, led her fighter wing against the forces threatening the evacuation ships. Her interceptor was half the size of a Council fighter, but twice as fast. She weaved through bioships, her targeting computer tracking multiple enemies. "Fox 3, she called out, launching a nuclear-tipped missile. The warhead detonated among a formation, creating a brief star in the darkness. "All wings, use the gap. Protect those transports." A young pilot named flew beside her. "Lead, I have multiple bandits on my 6. "Break left, I'm coming around," responded. She pulled her fighter through a turn that would black out most pilots, targeting the pursuing her wingman. Guns, guns, guns. Her rotary cannon chewed through bioarmor. The creatures never expected prey to fight so aggressively. On the eternal vigil, Admiral finally found his voice. "Open a channel to the Terran flagship, now." The holographic display flickered, showing on his bridge. Stared at the human commander, seeing the legend made real. Humans were smaller than most species, with no natural armor or weapons. But the way stood, the confidence in his eyes, this was a predator. "This is Admiral of the Galactic Council Fleet. Are you really Terran?" "Commander of the Terran Remnant Fleet," replied. "We received your distress call. We're here to help." "But you're dead, your species." "Is very much alive," interrupted. "And right now we're busy saving yours. Can we discuss history later, Admiral?" Felt embarrassment flush through him. "Of course, what do you need from us?" "Pull your ships back to form a defensive perimeter around the station. We'll handle the advance. Your shields are better than ours. Use them to protect the civilians. We'll provide the offense." It went against every tactical instinct had, letting an unknown force take the lead. But as he watched human ships tear through formations that had devastated his fleet, he realized the truth. The humans weren't just fighting, they were winning. "All Council ships reform on my position," ordered. "Establish defensive perimeter. Let the Terrans through." In the medical bay of the Eternal Dawn, Sumi prepared for casualties. The first wounded began arriving, Marines with acid burns, pilots with decompression injuries, crew members hurt by boarding actions. She moved between patients with practiced efficiency. "This one needs emergency surgery," called out, indicating a Marine with severe lacerations. "Prep him now," Sumi ordered. "We don't have time for anesthetic, hold him down." She performed the surgery in minutes, working with speed that would shock civilian doctors. But combat medicine wasn't about comfort. It was about keeping people alive long enough to heal. A Council medical ship sent a communication. "Terran vessel, we have casualties. Our doctors can't treat acid burns. Can you help?" "Send them over," Sumi replied immediately. "We'll handle them." The first alien casualties arrived, reptilian, gaseous in containment suits. Sumi had never treated aliens before, but wounds were wounds and pain was pain. "Apply basic trauma protocols," she told her team. "Stop bleeding, stabilize breathing, treat shock. The biology might be different, but the principles are the same." She worked on a soldier whose arm had been melted by acid. The creature writhed in agony, its translator unit barely functional. "Please, it hurts." "I know," Sumi said gently, her hands moving with practiced precision. I'm going to fix it. Stay with me. She amputated the damaged limb, sealed the wound, and administered painkillers. The would live. Throughout the medical bay, human doctors performed similar miracles, using techniques the Council had never seen: aggressive intervention, battlefield triage, refusing to give up on any patient who still had a chance. Back on the battlefield, they were adapting. Their hive mind recognized the human attack patterns, remembered them from ancient archives. These were the warriors, the ones that had been erased from the galaxy. They were supposed to be extinct. The central consciousness made a decision: retreat from Sector 14. These prey creatures fought like predators. Further engagement was too costly. The bioships began withdrawing, pulling back in coordinated waves. Watched them go, not pursuing. His mission was to save lives, not to chase enemies into unknown territory. All ships hold position, he ordered. Secure the area and assist with casualties. On the eternal vigil, Admiral looked at the battlefield readouts. They were gone. The evacuation ships were safe. His fleet still stood, battered but intact. And in the center of it all, the human ships held position, their weapons still hot from combat. "Get me Commander," said quietly. "I need to thank the ghost that saved my fleet." The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The conference room aboard the Eternal Vigil was designed for 6 species. Today it held 7. Admiral sat at the head of the table, surrounded by his commanders and others. At the far end sat the first human to attend a council military meeting in 9 centuries. "Commander," began carefully, "your intervention saved millions of lives, but we must address the obvious question. The Terran species was declared extinct. The Void Plague was real," interrupted, "but we exaggerated its effects. When the Council believed we were dead, we left, vanished into dark space. We've been out there for 847 years. "Why?" a commander asked, her antenna twitching with confusion. "You were valued members of the Council, elite warriors." "That was the problem," said quietly. "We were valued as warriors, not as people. You used us in every war, every conflict. We were the first sent into danger and the last to receive thanks. Eventually, we decided we were done." The room fell silent. Several commanders looked uncomfortable. They knew the history, even if they did not like to acknowledge it. "I understand your anger," said, "but the current threat is why we came back," finished. "They don't negotiate, they don't stop. If they consume the Council, eventually they'll find us too. So we're here, not for you, for survival." Sitting beside activated a holographic display. She was the diplomatic officer trained to navigate difficult conversations. "We propose a temporary alliance. We help you fight the. In exchange, you provide us with current intelligence, resupply where possible, and acknowledge our sovereignty. When this is over, we go our separate ways." "Just like that?" a commander asked through its translator. "After 9 centuries, you return, fight beside us, then leave again?" "Just like that," confirmed. "We're not asking to rejoin the Council. We're offering military assistance in exchange for mutual survival." Admiral considered this. His tactical mind saw the value immediately. Human weapons were devastatingly effective against the. Human soldiers fought with an aggression the Council had forgotten. "What do you need from us?" "Intelligence on movements," replied. "Supply coordinates for fuel and ammunition. Medical exchange, your doctors learn from ours, ours learn from yours. And tactical coordination. We can't win this alone." "Agreed," said after a moment. "I'll present this to the High Council. In the meantime, please accept the gratitude of every being you saved today." After the meeting, walked with through the Eternal Vigil. The ship was massive, designed for a crew of thousands. They passed alien soldiers who stopped and stared at the humans, these creatures from legend walking among them. "They're afraid of us," observed. "Good," replied. "Fear means respect, better than being seen as tools." They reached the observation deck. Through the windows, they could see the human fleet maintaining position. In the distance, Council repair ships worked on damaged vessels. "Do you think they'll actually change?" asked. "Or will they just try to use us again?" "Probably try to use us," said honestly. "That's why we made the agreement temporary. We help, we leave, no strings attached." Meanwhile, in the Council medical facility on the station, Sumi was teaching alien doctors human medical techniques. A dozen species crowded around her demonstration table, watching as she explained trauma surgery. "The key is speed," she said, her hands moving with practiced precision. "When someone is bleeding out, you don't have time for delicate procedures. Stop the bleeding first, stabilize second, pretty surgery third." A doctor raised a claw. "This seems aggressive." "It is aggressive," Sumi agreed. "But it works. Humans learned this from centuries of war. We don't have regeneration like some species. We can't regrow limbs or heal through meditation. So we developed techniques to keep damaged bodies functioning." She showed them the amputation she had performed earlier, explaining her choices. The alien doctors looked disturbed but fascinated. "You cut off the limb while the patient was conscious." "I gave him painkillers, but yes, there wasn't time for anesthetic. He would have died from acid poisoning before I could put him under properly." Sumi met their eyes. "In combat medicine, sometimes the choice is between pain and death. We choose pain." A council medical officer, a being named Vex, approached her later. "Your techniques are barbaric." "Maybe," Sumi admitted, "but that soldier is alive. Would your techniques have saved him?" Vex hesitated, then shook its head. "No, the acid damage was too severe." "Then maybe barbaric is what we need right now." In another section of the station, met with council security forces. He was a special forces operator, trained in boarding actions and close-quarters combat. The council wanted to learn human tactics after seeing how effectively Marines fought the. "Your soldiers engage in melee combat with the," a security commander said. "This is suicide for most species." "It's risky for humans too," replied. "But we can't always fight at range. Sometimes the enemy gets close, so we train to win close-quarters battles." He demonstrated hand-to-hand techniques, showing how humans used leverage and speed to fight larger opponents. "We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest, but we're adaptable. We learn our enemy's weaknesses and exploit them." "They have no weaknesses," the security commander insisted. "Everything has weaknesses," corrected. "They are strong and armored, but their joints are vulnerable. They use acid and claws, but those require close range. They have a hive mind, which means killing their node commanders disrupts their coordination." He showed footage from the boarding action on the Indomitable. Human Marines moving in pairs, using explosives and shotguns, targeting specific warriors that seemed to coordinate the others. "See, once we killed these three, the rest became confused. They're dangerous, but they can be beaten." The security commander studied the footage carefully. "You fight like predators." "We are predators," said simply. "Earth was a predator's world. We learned to hunt or die." Back in the archives of the Eternal Dawn, continued researching patterns. She had pulled data from the battle, analyzing their movements and tactics. Something bothered her. "They recognized us," she told, pointing to communication intercepts. "Look at this. The moment they identified human ships, they began retreating. They knew who we were." "But how? We've been gone for 9 centuries." "They have been around for millions of years," explained. "They have a collective memory that spans generations. Somewhere in their hive mind, they remember humanity. They remember what we did during the Council Wars." She pulled up old battle reports showing human forces fighting in ancient conflicts. "We faced them before, back when we served the Council, and we beat them. Every time we engaged we won. They learned to fear us." "So they're running because they remember." "Exactly. To them, humanity isn't just another species. We're the thing that hurts them, the prey that fights back, the creature that should be weak but isn't. Stared at the data. Does this mean we have a psychological advantage? It means we have a reputation. The question is whether we can use it. That night, addressed his fleet in a ship-wide broadcast. Thousands of humans watched from their stations, listening to their commander explain what came next. "We've won our first battle against he began. But this war is far from over. The Council is asking for our help. They want us to lead the counteroffensive, to push the back and save their territory." He paused, letting that sink in. "I know what many of you are thinking. Why should we? The Council used us before. They'll use us again. And you're right to be cautious. But I'm asking you to look beyond the Council. Look at the billions of civilians who will die if they win. Look at the future where these creatures spread across the galaxy unchecked." "We didn't come back to be heroes," continued. "We came back because we're human, because when someone calls for help, we answer, because we're more than just warriors, we're people who choose to do the right thing even when it's hard." He straightened, his voice becoming firm. "The galaxy thinks we're legends, myths from ancient history. Let's show them what we really are. Let's show them that humanity isn't just about fighting. It's about courage, compassion, and refusing to give up even when everything says we should." Throughout the fleet, humans responded with quiet determination. They were tired of running, tired of hiding, ready to prove that they were more than the Council had ever understood. Admiral watched the human broadcast from his quarters. He had fought in dozens of battles, commanded thousands of soldiers, but he had never seen anything like these humans. They fought with a ferocity that seemed impossible, yet treated wounded enemies with gentleness. They used brutal tactics, yet showed mercy when they could. They were contradictions, predators with compassion, warriors with honor. And realized with sudden clarity why they were retreating. It wasn't just fear of human weapons or tactics. It was fear of what humans represented, a species that refused to be prey, that turned suffering into strength, that fought not just to survive but to protect others. The legend had returned, and it was more terrifying than any story could capture. The home cluster was a nightmare made real. 7 star systems linked by bioconstructed space bridges, each one swarming with millions of warrior drones. Intelligence suggested the Queen resided in the center system, a massive organic structure that coordinated the entire swarm. To reach her, the combined fleet would need to fight through every defensive layer. In the command center aboard the Eternal Dawn stood before a holographic battle map. Around him gathered both human and alien commanders. This was the largest military gathering in galactic history, 4 council fleets and the entire human remnant force, united against a common enemy. "The plan is simple," explained, highlighting the map. 3-pronged assault. Council forces attack from these vectors, drawing defenders away from the center. Meanwhile, human strike forces push directly through the middle, targeting the Queen's location. "You're using yourselves as the spear point," Admiral asked. "That's the most dangerous position." "It's what we do best," replied. "Human ships are built for penetration assaults. We can take more damage than your vessels. Besides, they remember us. They'll focus on us, which means less pressure on your forces." A commander shifted nervously. "If the human fleet falls, we lose our primary offensive capability." "Then we better not fall," Minyu said from his station. The destroyer captain had become something of a legend himself after the Battle of Broken Gate. "We've fought impossible odds before." Leaned forward, her fighter pilot instincts showing. "The key is speed. We hit fast, hit hard, and don't stop moving. The moment we slow down, they'll swarm us." "What about the Queen?" another commander asked. "Even if we reach her, she's protected by the entire Hive's elite guard." "Spoke up. That's where my teams come in. Special Forces insertion. We board the Queen's structure, fight our way to the core, and eliminate her. Without the Queen, the Hive mind collapses." "A suicide mission," Vex the medical officer said bluntly. Only if we fail, replied with a slight smile. We don't plan to fail. The briefing continued for hours. Every detail was planned, every contingency considered, but everyone in the room knew the truth. This battle would cost lives, possibly thousands of lives, maybe more. As the commanders dispersed to prepare their forces approached, she carried a data device, her historian's eyes serious. Before you go, you should see this. She played an audio file. It was a communication, intercepted weeks ago and finally translated. The voice was the collective consciousness of the hive mind, speaking to itself. The warriors return, the ones who bleed but do not fall, the ones who scream defiance at inevitability. They should not exist, they should be prey, but they are predators, retreat, survive, remember. Listened silently, they're afraid of us. More than afraid, said. They're terrified. To the humans represent something incomprehensible. We're weak individually, but together we're unstoppable. We should give up when hurt, but we keep fighting. We violate every rule of their understanding about how prey species should behave. Does that help us? It means they'll fight harder, desperate to prove we can be beaten, or they'll break completely. Met his eyes. Either way, this ends today. 3 hours later, the combined fleet entered the home cluster. Immediately, millions of bioships swarmed from hidden positions. The battle began with a fury that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen before. Council forces engaged on the flanks, their energy weapons creating brilliant displays of color against the void. Warriors died by thousands, but more kept coming. The swarm seemed endless. All human ships, maximum acceleration, ordered. Punch through the center, don't stop for anything. The human fleet became a wedge, driving into the heart of the defenses. Fired continuously, creating a corridor of destruction. Nuclear missiles detonated in clusters, vaporizing entire formations. The humans fought with absolute commitment, every ship pushing past safety limits. Minu's destroyer led the assault, its armor by acid and impacts but still functional. Engineering, I need more power to the forward guns. Sir, we're already at 130%, his voice came through the comm. Any more and we risk core breach. Give me 150%, we're almost through. The Indomitable blazed a trail through the defenses. Behind it, the human fleet followed, maintaining formation through sheer skill and determination. Bioships tried to close the gap, but human fighters swarmed them. Led her squadrons in a dance of death, her pilots performing maneuvers that would kill less resilient species. Fox 3, she called out repeatedly, launching missiles at point-blank range. Her fighter took hits, acid burns that melted sections of her hull, but she kept flying. All wings cover the destroyers. They're taking heavy fire. A young pilot named Ship took critical damage. His voice came across the squadron frequency, calm despite imminent death. Lead, I'm not going to make it. Reactors critical. Eject, that's an order. Negative, I'm in the middle of their formation. If I let this reactor blow. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Aimed his dying ship at the densest cluster of warriors and maxed his engines. The explosion created a gap in the defenses, large enough for 3 destroyers to pass through. Honor his name, said quietly. Then louder, all wings exploit that gap. Move, move, move. On the medical ship Mercy's Hand, Sumi and her teams worked frantically. Casualties poured in faster than they could treat them, human and alien both. She moved between patients, making split-second decisions about who could be saved and who would have to wait. Doctor, we have multiple casualties with acid burns, called out. Start the neutralization protocol. Use the technique I taught you. Sumi was already working on a human marine whose arm had been nearly severed. She could save the limb if she worked fast enough. Hold pressure here. Keep him talking. The marine looked up at her through pain-filled eyes. Did we break through? Almost there, Sumi lied, knowing he needed hope more than truth right now. Stay with me, you're going home. She worked with hands that never trembled, even as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. Around her, the medical bay was chaos, aliens and humans working together, using techniques from both cultures, fighting death with the same determination the fleet used to fight the. At the heart of the home system, and his special forces teams approached the Queen's structure. It was massive, a biological nightmare of organic corridors and poolsing biotechnology. They came in fast, using small assault craft to penetrate the outer defenses. Take your Marines and secure the landing zone, ordered. My team goes for the Queen. If we don't come back, blow this whole structure and get out. We'll be here when you return, replied firmly. That's not a suggestion, Lieutenant. Led his team deeper into the structure. They fought through elite warriors, creatures twice as large and 3 times as deadly as normal drones. But the humans had faced worse. They had fought in the old Council Wars. They had survived extinction. A few oversized bugs weren't going to stop them. The Queen's chamber was at the structure's core, a vast organic space filled with biotechnology beyond human understanding. At the center floated the Queen herself, massive, ancient, the mind that controlled billions. When she saw the humans, the Queen's voice filled their heads through some biological telepathy. You should not exist. You are wrong. Prey that acts like predators. Weak things that refuse to break. You should be dead. We get that a lot, replied, raising his weapon. Here's the thing about humans. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. The final fight was brief but brutal. The Queen's guards threw everything at the humans, but special forces training and sheer determination won out. Planted explosive charges at key points throughout the chamber, set for maximum yield. All teams extract now, he ordered. This place is coming down. They ran through corridors filling with dying warriors. The hive mind was already fragmenting, the Queen's death throes disrupting coordination across the entire cluster. They reached the extraction point as the charges detonated, collapsing the structure from within. In space, watched as the fleet suddenly lost cohesion. Bioships stopped coordinating, began flying into each other, seemed lost and confused. The Queen is dead. All ships' final push. Wipe out the remaining resistance. The battle lasted another 3 hours, but it was essentially over. Without the hive mind's guidance, there were just animals, dangerous but uncoordinated. The combined fleet systematically eliminated every threat, securing the cluster system by system. When the last ship fell, sat back in his chair, suddenly aware of how exhausted he was. Around him, his bridge crew showed similar fatigue, but they had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. Admiral's face appeared on the communication screen. The looked equally tired. Commander, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you. You've saved us all. We saved ourselves too, replied. They would have found us eventually. Still, you came when we called. You fought when we had given up. You reminded the galaxy what courage looks like. Paused. The High Council wishes to offer you a seat, full membership with all rights and privileges. You would have equal voice with the founding species. Was silent for a long moment. Around him, his officers waited. Finally, he spoke. Tell the High Council we appreciate the offer, but our answer is no. But we didn't come back to rejoin the Council, explained. We came back to save lives. That's done now. We're going home to rebuild, to live in peace, to be more than just warriors. Will we ever see you again? Smiled slightly. Maybe, if you need help and you call, because that's what humans do. We answer when someone calls for help, but on our terms as equals, never again as tools. The transmission ended, opened a ship-wide channel. All ships prepare for departure, we're going home. Throughout the fleet, humans began shutdown procedures. They had lost 30% of their forces, thousands of good people who would never see the colonies they had been promised. But they had won. They had proven that humanity was more than legend, more than myth. In the medical bay, Sumi finally allowed herself to sit down. Around her, wounded soldiers, human and alien both, rested in recovery. She had saved most of them. That would have to be enough. Updated the archives one final time, adding the battle records and casualty lists. She wrote the epitaph for humanity's return. We didn't come back for glory. We came back because when someone calls for help, humans answer. Not because we're ordered to, not because we're expected to, but because it's right, because we're human, and that means something. Walked through the engine room, checking systems. The ship would need repairs, but it would hold together for the journey home. "Where is home?" a young engineer asked him. "Wherever we decide to make it," replied. "Somewhere the council can't find us. Somewhere we can build a life that's more than just fighting." As the Eternal Dawn and its fleet turned away from council space, they passed the remains of the battlefield. Thousands of ships, both and council, drifted in the void. The cost of war, written in metal and blood. On the eternal vigil, Admiral watched the humans leave. They had been legends. Then they had been real. Now they were leaving again, fading back into the darkness of space. But the galaxy would remember. The council would remember. The humans had come when called, fought when needed, and then walked away when the fighting was done. They had proven they were more than warriors. They were people of honor, courage, and compassion. "Will we see them again?" an officer asked. The admiral considered this. "I hope so, but more importantly, I hope we never need them again, because if we call, they'll come, and that means something terrible is happening." He turned from the window, heading to the bridge. There was rebuilding to do, a galaxy to heal, but for the first time in months felt hope. The humans had reminded them all what was possible when people fought not because they had to, but because they chose to. The legend was over, the truth remained. Humanity endured.